Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. At this time, I call the meeting to order. We have 5 members present this evening. We do have a quorum. And at this time, I invite you to stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll begin with the approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any discussion or any questions? All those in favor of approval? All right, we have 5 affirmative, and the student member concurs. We'll move to approval of the minutes.
President Williams, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, May 17th, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Are there any questions about the closed session minutes? All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative.
President Williams, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Friday, May 20th, 2022.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions about the closed session minutes? All those in favor of approval? We have 5 affirmative.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the 3 p.m. closed session minutes dated Tuesday, May 24th, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions about the closed session minutes of May 24th, 3 p.m.? All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative votes. Is that it, Mrs. Murray?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We have all 3 sets of closed session minutes approved. This time we'll have public comment. And before we begin, I'd like to read from Board Policy KD regarding procedures at business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. At this time, we have signed up in advance Mr. Neil Becker. Mr. Becker?
Thank you, President Williams, board members, Dr. Michael, and staff. Before my actual comments, I won't be present during our next Board of Education meeting, and I know that will be our final official meeting with Dr. Michael and with Tanish. Thank you so much for your service as superintendent, as student board member. The county is truly lucky to have folks like you committed. You for a year and you for a few more than a year. But we truly have been fortunate to have an educational leader over the past several years in you, Dr. Michael. So thank you for your service. I regret I won't be here at the next meeting when there's probably going to be all sorts of pomp and circumstance. But I don't know if that counted against my minutes, but I will, and I'm not going to go for the unlimited minutes that was suggested at a previous meeting. The focus of my discussion, as I included when I signed up, is the superintendent search process. And some in our community have questioned the process of finding a successor to you, Dr. Michael. I applaud the team from McPherson and Jacobson for their work and advertising the position, vetting the candidates, partnering with you, the Board of Education, to narrow the field and identify finalists. My research on Dr. Zavine and Dr. Kramer has led me to believe that both men have a lot in common with me and with you. They are committed to student success and educator excellence. They are committed to improving the community and the lives of children through public education. McPherson and Jacobson and you, the board members, are to be commended for your work identifying candidates with such drive and determination. Thank you for facilitating a transparent process which incorporated the voices of stakeholders from throughout the community. There were educators, there were students, community leaders, just general parents and community members were invited to participate. Some in our county have been quick to question the integrity of the process and discredit the candidates. Inaccuracies and falsehoods have been tossed around in social media and other platforms before either finalist has been given the opportunity to prove his worth. It's easy to spread hate and misinformation as a keyboard warrior and hide behind a screen and hurl mean and hateful accusations at this board, McPherson and Jacobson, and the process in general. But as a community, we are better than that. We must surround the successful candidate in love and kindness and hope for our children. 23,000 children are in the hands of the next superintendent and Washington County Public Schools. Rise above the hate. Rise above the lies and the rumors. Show compassion and grace and dignity as we work to ensure opportunities for all children. I, as a parent, a teacher, an association leader, I'm committed to supporting the successful candidate when announced. I look forward to welcoming the next superintendent and working collaboratively, as we've done with Dr. Michael and this board, to advance Washington County Public Schools. I implore my colleagues and community members to do the same. Together, we will do great things for Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I would just like to say I'm a concerned parent.
I'm sorry,
And-
excuse me. Would
I'm
you
sorry.
introduce yourself, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jean Carol Keys. I'm a concerned parent. I just wanted you guys to know, after speaking with friends and neighbors and students and other concerned parents, some of us have organized a meeting to be held on June 21st at Nolan Village Boys and Girls Club at 5:30. Parents, students, and educators are welcome, and those from the South High cluster are encouraged to attend. We hope to have a solution-focused dialogue regarding our children and their safety, health, and well-being. Once again, thank you, Dr. Boyd, Michael Boyd, for all your service, and continued blessings to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Keys. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Lowen, and I want to speak about the search for the new superintendent. I do want to take a moment just to recognize Dr. Michael. For the time that I've been exposed to the school board and to Dr. Michael, I've come to have a lot of respect. I think what he does has been right for the children in many ways, and really just juggling balls that are been a lot of stress. And so me and many people I know have a lot of respect for you. I just want to take a moment to recognize that. As far as the selection for the new superintendent, we do have a very, very serious issue, because in the American public school system, we have two views of public schools all of a sudden, that One is the traditional view that teaching is for reading, writing, math, arithmetic, history, science, literature. In other words, teaching children how to think, giving them the tools that they need to be able to go on, live the adventure of life, and to be able to grow as a result. And then there's another view that's kind of popped up in the last 10 to 15 years, which is really about teaching children what to think. And the results have been horrific, and it's been going on for a while now. You know, several years ago, Washington State really grasped onto that concept, and they removed the requirements for children to have to, high school students to have to be able to pass a math test or a math class, and they replaced it with a class that just teaches that math is racist. It doesn't, no class actually teaching math. And now, several years later, they've had to remove all requirements for high school graduates, all standards. And the reason is because when you stop educating children, it becomes systematized, and you can't back it up later. And just 2 weeks ago, Chicago, I believe that their school system may have about as many children as all of Maryland does. And they actually announced that they are going to move to a race-based education system or grading system. And that's horrible. What, because of someone's skin color, they don't need to have the same standards of education? I don't think they believe that that's the right thing at all. I think that what it is that they grasped onto this concept X number of years ago and have lost the ability to educate children to the point that they now need to come up with a way to justify the fact that there's no one actually meeting any standards, or very, very few. And the problem is the state of Maryland is not that much different. We're not in that much better of a situation. Next year, correct me if I'm wrong, but are we not going to be removing the requirement for many of our high school students to have to pass a test in high school to get credit for a class? And why would that happen? Well, we have many school districts in this state that have held on to that standard. And these are the effects. So as we go through and we choose who the next superintendent is going to be, we have to keep that in mind, because that is what's been happening in many, many ways, and we have to put an end to it. Now, one of the things is that I do believe that it needs to be transparent, and I guess I wonder why the discussions with the school superintendent, the questions, the answers haven't been live streamed. You know, when in Congress, when we pick, a Secretary of Education, when we pick a department, someone in the Department of Defense, a judge, a Supreme Court justice, those are all publicly televised so that the public can actually see and experience and understand and have an opinion and knowledge of who it is that the leaders are. Why is that not happening with the superintendent? There's many questions about the superintendent, and many of which are legitimate. And so the public should have access to that, instead of things being done in secrecy. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Holly Fairley. I'm a preschool teacher from Clear Spring, and I was here in April. Get to speak to all of you about class sizes. And I'm once again here just to keep that in front, that class sizes are a real strain on quite a few of our teachers, and also behaviors. We were looking at data, and fortunately this year, I didn't have the behaviors that I had the year before, because my data would have totally been flip-flopped. I wish I could say I'm coming here with some answers. Don't have them. But I do know there's serious problems out there in the classrooms. These teachers are trying their best to educate when instructional time is being taken because of the behaviors, or it takes a long time to get a student placed when you say, oh, we really need to get some help for this one. It can be sometimes up to months and months before they're placed, or, I'm sorry, the behavior support classrooms are full. And I'm also advocating for all those students that are being exposed to a plethora of problems going on. And Education 101, my very first class, I know we were supposed to have a safe learning environment, and that's not always the case. And like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but there is a huge problem out there. Just please keep that in mind. I know our new superintendent is going to be coming in and hearing great things, and Washington County is fabulous. the teachers, staff, everything. But there are some things that really do need addressed, and the class size is, especially at the elementary level, is a real strain. It's hard on the students and the teachers, and then some of the behaviors, which each year they seem to be escalating. Our poor counselor is overwhelmed, and we're all doing our best, and I appreciate all that you're doing, and just, I guess I'm just saying we need some help out there. And I wish you the best, Dr. Michael. If you get bored, you're welcome in the classroom anytime.
Thank you, Ms. Fairley. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening, President Williams and Superintendent Boyd and all the other members. My name is Robin Spickler. I have recently retired from Washington County after 44 years of teaching, and I felt the need to come in and just express my gratitude to everybody on the board and Boyd for everything that you have been doing and continue to do for our teachers. There's been numerous teachers here throughout the year voicing their concerns, and you're listening, and I sure hope that that follows on through the next year with the needs that are still there to have to be addressed. I thank you all. I know that there's been numerous things that need to be done, and I wish I knew the answer. That's why I come to the meetings, so I can hear, and I have contacts with a lot of former friends and staff members, and I hear and I see, and I'm trying to figure out what it is I can do on my part and also help. And as I heard Becky Higgins Avery say, be the change. So there was a lot of things that I've been thinking about and hoping that as we go forward, as the break comes and we all get revived and we come back, that we can set a lot of things ahead and get things really going forward to correct some things or to improve on things. But I want to thank you for your service, and I know we've had conversations, and I know we've been on the fence with many things together, but I truly believe you have been the best for our county. Like I've said, I've been here 44 years, so I've been through quite a few superintendents, and I do appreciate the thoughtfulness and your commitment to our students and to our staffs, all of you. So with that, I thank you for this evening, and I wish you the best on your retirement. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spinkler. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues, Mr. Bickford?
I just had a question about the meeting that's going to be at the Boys and Girls Club. You said it's on the 21st? Yes. What time does it start? 5:30, okay. That is a board meeting night, so we'll be here, but I don't know if the board is planning on sending representation or...
I'm going to ask Dr. Wilcox if he'd be available to possibly attend. And maybe we'll have Dr. Palmer attend as well.
Okay.
We'll look into it and see what's the right staff to attend.
So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And I would also like to add, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your names. I think it was Ms. Keys and Ms. Fairley. I certainly appreciate you guys coming in and speak with us. It's not always easy to bring up concerns like that. So, and like you said, there is no easy solution. I know we do discuss it frequently, trying to figure out how to do this. Class size for me personally is a concern because I think that also creates very significant safety problems as well. So they, while the differences or the issues that you have in Clear Spring and South High are very different, that doesn't necessarily make either one of them more significant than the other. So I know that we're always looking for solutions and ideas. So please continue to email us, and it is a concern of ours as well. So thank you.
Anyone else? This time we'll begin our old business. Our first action item under old business is the second reading of proposed changes to policy DLC, employee expenses. Good evening, Mrs. Rand.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Michael, members of the board. The Policy Committee recommended and the Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to Policy DLC entitled Employee Expenses at the May 24th, 2022 business meeting. The committee posted a public notice on Board Docs and the school system's website following the first reading of the proposed changes, seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes. The committee members reviewed the comment that was received. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to Policy DLC.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy DLC entitled Employee Expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion? No? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy DLC entitled Employee Expenses. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative and the student member concurs. The motion carries. Next item of old business is the approval of an amendment to the fiscal year 2023 general fund operating budget. And we have Mr. David Brandenburg, Executive Director of Finance, Mr. Prue, and Mr. Eric Sisler. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. For a quick recap, the board approved their general fund operating budget on March 15th. Since that time, there are 2 adjustments on the revenue side of your budget that require an amendment on behalf of the Board of Education. First is that the allocation from the county commissioners was not sufficient to meet the request of the Board of Education, short by roughly $1.44 million. Secondary to that, last week, staff received a final revised allocation of state aid from the Maryland State Department of Education. There is an adjustment worth $33,000 of reduced state aid to Washington County for the coming year that has to deal with how they calculated wealth equalization in the compensatory education and English learner categories. That is a reduction on the state side, which also causes a reduction in revenue. In total, we're roughly $1.7 million is the reduction to the operating budget for FY23. Staff is recommending that that reduction be made in the line item that is contract services in the section of capital outlay. This is an area where we would invest funds to renovate or make adjustments to schools as is necessary. Later in tonight's meeting, you have FY22 budget adjustments where we have savings from vacant positions from this year, where we're able to allocate money into capital outlay to somewhat offset the adjustment that's being made here for the FY23 budget. We also have availability of ESSER funds still yet for the next 2 fiscal years, where we're doing significant enhancements to schools, mostly on HVAC and electrical distribution systems, where we can absorb some of what would be done in the general fund operating budget here under capital outlay. And with that, the team is here, and as well as Dr. Michael, to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the proposed amendment to the FY 2023 general fund budget.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion?
I have a question. What, do you remember offhand how much it was? They did not in this budget approve taking over funding for SROs. The county didn't, correct?
They did not. So the county's allocation this year is, in big round numbers, about $2.2 million more than what's required under maintenance of effort. But it was not specifically targeted to any specific category. So school resource officers is still in this budget, funded by the Board of Education long-term out of funds received from both the state and local government.
But next year, we will still have to continue to pay for, we will be one of 2 school systems that continue to have to pay out of our funds for safety.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is Sorry, which is required by law.
We're required by state law to have adequate coverage between the school system and your legal, your police authority. You have to develop what adequate coverage looks like. It could look different in every county.
And what was the, do we have any idea of what the surplus was for the county government this year?
I don't think we have a firm number for FY22. I'm hearing, I hesitate to ask. I hesitate to throw a number because I've heard a number, but I don't have any basis to understand whether that number is accurate or not. So I'm hearing that they intend to have a large surplus from FY22 operations, but I don't. It'll likely be September or October before that number is publicly known.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gupta?
So just to be clear, I think you said this in the beginning, but I didn't catch this. What exactly was not funded, and where is money being taken out from?
So there's not a specific line item that's not funded. The county's allocation is less than what the Board of Education requested of the county by $1.44 million. So it's then incumbent upon the board to decide where it wants to make that deduction. Staff is recommending that we take it from the line contract services in the capital outlay page of the budget. That line item would still have slightly more than $2 million, about $2,053,000 remaining for renovations and additions to schools. And we would supplant that by utilizing some budget adjustments from 22, which the board will see later here in this meeting, or also by using ESSER funds over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
So I think we've been fortunate to have, excuse me, I think we've been fortunate to have the ESSER funding, regardless of whether we agree how we got it. We were fortunate in that our poverty rate drove a significant amount of ESSER funds to Washington County. And as part of our first amendment to ESSER 3, we're going to make adjustments to drive more money towards potential capital outlay, contracted services, our systemic projects. And this is helping us keep our buildings cool, warm, dry, those types of things. It is not adding to renovating our inventory. Our buildings continue to age, but it is keeping our buildings in conditions to educate children. So we're fortunate to have this money. I think it's a strategic request on the behalf of staff that we make this adjustment. It won't affect the social emotional resources that the board has added to the budget, as well as the resources that I added to the budget. I think it's noteworthy that while we were able to give the most significant raise we were able to give in any kind of recent years to our staff, it's not sufficient when you're looking at 7-8% inflation, and looking at a year or 2 years ago with 1% no step, and last year at 1.25% with no step, and a very dire need for all types of staff, ESP teachers and administrators. So it's all things we need to keep in mind. So I think this is strategic on behalf of the staff to make this recommendation. We're fortunate in the short term, at least for the next 2 summers, 3 summers, counting this summer, that we're going to drive a lot of our ESSER funding to this type of use. It makes it a one-time use, and there's no need to continue that in the future, except there will be an ongoing need for capital money beyond what we're receiving at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Anything else? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget. All those in favor? We have 5 affirmative votes. The student member concurs, and the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, at this time, we'll begin new business. And we have as our next item the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments with Mr. David Brandenburg, Executive Director of Finance, presenting. Mr. Brandenburg.
Good evening, President Williams and members of the board, Dr. Michael. You have before you the adjustments. As you know, from time to time throughout the year, we bring forward to you cross-category adjustments that cross different categories of the budget, and we are required to bring those to you and also to the county commissioners upon your approval. These are adjustments that we have looked at the status of our accounts And as you can see, most of the areas where there are savings result from the fact that we have quite a few vacancies and related savings as a result of that, and fixed charges. And then areas where we are going higher in over budget areas include the mid-level administration, other instructional costs and special ed, and then also the capital outlay. We provided for that, as Mr. Prue mentioned earlier. These adjustments were reviewed with the Finance Committee on May 26th, and we bring them forward to you at this time for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Brandenburg. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the proposed FY 2022 budget adjustments as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Questions for Mr. Brandenburg or any discussion? Oh, seeing none, then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments as presented. All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative votes. Student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Brandenburg.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item of new business, we have Mr. Brandenburg staying with us.
I like this
And
seat.
You have some good news for us.
Yes. Every year, we send out information available to the schools and school-related organizations and booster groups that we have a fund that is available for non-interest-bearing loans to support extracurriculars or school improvement activities or other things that enhance the education of our children. This fund comes from the estates of those who die without a will or without named heirs, that they can't locate the heirs. As cheat, yes, as cheated funds from estates that don't have heirs that they can't be located. And sometimes they do locate them later on, and we pay that back to them. But this fund has grown over the years, and so we have a request this year from the North Hagerstown High School Band Boosters. They would like to borrow $20,000 to provide uniforms for the band, to replace uniforms that were bought in 2001 when I was the treasurer of the Band Boosters. So, so they would, we have this request. It is a 10-year non-interest-bearing loan, equal payments annually, and we bring that forward to you at this time for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, move to approve a non-interest loan to North Hagerstown High School Band Boosters in the amount of $20,000 to be repaid over 10 years.
Thank you, Mrs. Stauffer. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions or any discussion?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. So I would like to, point out that, and I don't know if you said it or not, the last time they bought new uniforms was 2001. I got to imagine some of these uniforms are pretty beat up. Is this a normal thing that we loan out the money for a lot of these replacements? I don't necessarily want to get into buying uniforms or whatever for every single sport and every single school. That would obviously be quite pricey, but is this something normal, or do we ever go and pay for it for them? Or
This is something that the band boosters normally provide for the schools. And also they charge fees to the students, but the fees are very low, and the cleaning and maintenance is usually the responsibility of the boosters, again, through either fees or through their fundraisers. Different organizations do it different ways, probably.
We haven't had a lot of use of the loan.
No.
It doesn't seem like recently, but it's been a pretty common practice. Probably, I have no idea what the uniforms cost, but I'm going to assume it's a lot higher than $20,000. So probably only borrowing a portion of the money necessary to borrow or to purchase the uniforms all at once. I think we're going to have a request, or we've had requests from booster groups before for construction partnerships, things like that. But obviously, the money needs to be repaid, and it's not free money.
Right.
And it's generally it's used for things up and beyond what the board has been able to provide.
They have an amount almost that much in savings, and we have The last time I remember, we haven't had, like Dr. Michael mentioned, we haven't had much demand for these loans. In fact, this is the first one that I've brought since I've been in this position. Excuse me. We do have a commitment for the Smithsburg Athletic Boosters for a project out there.
Right, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I mean, $20,000 over a 10-year period is almost like free money when you factor in that interest of nothing. But is that also a typical loan time frame as well, 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 5 to 10 years is typical.
See, I think it's probably on the upper end. Most of the loans are probably 5-year loans.
Yes, our policy states that we would give preference to those that do not exceed 10% of the fund balance or don't extend beyond 10 years.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we paid the loan back before 10 years is up. I mean,
Right, there's no penalty for paying that early, of course. And then it's a great benefit for these organizations, to be able to borrow this money with no cost, especially in times of rising interest rates.
Yes, I'd just like to express gratitude for those as cheated funds, and for, I don't know who or when it was determined that those funds would come to the school systems to make loans like this possible, but to be in a position to be able to make this possible for the boosters, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
I'm grateful for that, for all those heirs who didn't come forward and who may not come forward, that we're able to benefit and to do this, so. Okay.
It's a good use of funds that otherwise would go to the state.
They'd go to the state.
They would otherwise go to the state if there wasn't a provision in the law for that to come to us. And this goes back way before I came here, so I don't know when it was determined.
Someone in their wisdom thought that the school system would be the appropriate benefactor to make things happen for their students. Thank you to those wise people. All right, so we're voting to approve the non-interest loan to North Hagerstown High School band boosters in the amount of $20,000 to be repaid over 10 years. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative votes, and the student member concurs, so motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll have approval of this evening's consent agenda, or not. I'm assuming approval. It's consideration of the consent agenda with Mr. Scott Bechtel, Supervisor of Purchasing. Good evening, Mr. Bechtel.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have, 6 items for your review. These items have been reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards and renewals for athletic trainer services. Renewal to Pivot Athletic Training at an approximate cost of $322,000. Produce to Seashore Fruit and Produce Company, Inc., Greensburg Farm Warehouse and Reinhardt Orchards at the unit prices listed. Warehouse and delivery services for food and nutrition services to Acela Distribution and Warehousing, LLC at the unit prices listed. Processed commodities renewal to the various vendors listed on the exhibit at the unit prices listed. Zonar GPS system software renewal to Zonar System at a cost of $67,706.76, and site lighting improvements at South Hagerstown High School to Milton Stamper Builders at a cost of $940,000.
Thank you, Mr. Pickford. Is there a second?
second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Questions for Mr. Bechtel or discussion?
Yeah, could you clarify the site lighting improvements and the purpose of that? I know we did discuss that in Finance Committee, just kind of make sure that people know about, and correct me if I'm wrong, mainly for safety purposes, trying to light up the area and everything like that as well.
Right. So I'd probably like to, Mr. Rollins can respond with specifically what the project is, but the reason for the project, and I think Mrs. Keys, you might be interested in this, we put a lot of effort into enhancements at South Hagerstown High School. Obviously, it's a school that's over capacity with students at this point. It's unfortunate that we had a delay in the construction of our 16 portables, but we have two new 8-packs portables out there to replace the old portables, 12 portables that were there, including restrooms. The site lighting is another request of the administration for site lighting outside around the athletic fields, out in the parking lot, in the bus drop-off loop, parent drop-off loop right next to the tennis courts. It's a substantial investment, but it's quality lighting as well as it's LED. It'll save us an electric with more light for those areas. So it's a safety and security measure, so it's a purpose for it. I would also like to note, Mr. Rollins, you can help me out, we're also expanding and well underway the expansion of the cafeteria, which will help us with some cafeteria overcrowding. Where you have overcrowding, you potentially have, various potential challenges, so we're trying to address that need. A new canopy will go in the front where students will be able to be safe and secure along with the lighting and in out of the weather, was the request of the administration. Canopy also goes out to the portables, which was part of the portable project, but it couldn't be done because of the timing of the portables. We delayed that until this summer, where it can be done, when children aren't there and be involved in the construction. We're looking at the bus and parent drop-off loop and talking about reversing those areas. We're talking about now about a security switchback for handicap accessibility between the band area, that hallway, main hallway, and down the gymnasium, which also will allow us to secure students in various areas of the building as a security measure. Where the list goes on. Mr. Rollins, help me out. Bleacher replacement, again, another safety, handicap accessibility upgrade for South Hagerstown High School. Seems like there's another project or two, but enough, there's a lot of small things that go on as well. But it is for the purpose of enhancing safety and security, addressing the needs of South High with the number of students, buses, cars, traffic that we're working with. It's also our venue for showcase of bands, other large events, and the site lighting would help with those things as well.
Yeah, we're increasing the lighting in the main parking lot. The new lighting will cover the whole parking lot. Right now, they have to bring in some temporary lights when they have a big event to cover that. And all these lighting options were discussed with the school as well as with Mr. Ganley, our security expert here, so that we made sure we were covering the areas that were most critical to the school.
And I know right now lighting doesn't seem like much of a concern since it's dark at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but in the fall and winter seasons when sporting events are getting out and kids are waiting for rides, it is a big concern. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I'd just like to say that the athletic trainer services, since we've had them in the county, I don't know when they came on board, but they are a godsend because of the fact that with the concussion protocols and the paperwork that's involved there and other things, it takes a lot of responsibility off the coaching staffs who have enough to do, attending to all the players on their teams and so forth. And I remember when I was the athletic director at Williamsport, I can't remember the exact thing, but Coach came to me and he said, Coach, he said, can you have your athletic trainer look at one of my players and so forth? I can't remember what it was about. And I said, Coach, I said, you're in Washington County. We don't have an athletic trainer. He was from Carroll or Frederick County. And he just looked at me like astonished, like, what? And I said, we don't have athletic trainers. I'm sorry. And I said, I have no one to assist you with whatever it was. But it's been a godsend.
My observation's been that the coaches, the teams, visiting teams greatly appreciate the fact that we have the athletic trainers. Still, the athletic trainers are cheaper for us to contract than they are for us to have as employees, so that has worked out well. I think the trainers also keep up on latest techniques and things. I know when I was a coach and I had the care and prevention class, after several years, you kind of, unless you're doing that every day, taping ankles and things like that, you're not an expert at those things. And we have people that receive regular training with this. So I do think it's a good deal, and it's a good safety and health asset for our teams as well.
The one thing I took away from the care and prevention classes when we had to take them was, and the instructor emphasized this, when in doubt, seek medical assistance. That was the big thing.
My question also revolved around the athletic trainers. We're so specific on certain bids. This one was listed as an approximate cost. Why is that listed approximate?
So The hours could vary a little bit depending on, like, Eric Michael will kind of let them know when we're going to kind of start summer hours. And then also, there are things like, Saturday track meets, things like that will be outside. So we have an hourly rate for those kind of outside of the normal work day or work week needs. And so it's, I think it was 321,000, and I just kind of rounded up thinking,
Okay.
I'm sure throughout the year, they probably use their services a little bit more. That's why I just said approximate.
Does it end up being a not to exceed 322, or what happens if expenses are higher?
It could be more than that, depending on, if teams made it further in the playoffs or something like that, where, they're now they're kind of into their summer, especially the spring, if they're into summer hours where they would only be working 10, they might be working more. So I would say it's going to be real close to that.
Okay.
It could vary one way or the other by a small amount.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Gupta?
I just had two questions. One in the produce, it says here, talks about from getting it from local farmers. Do you know about how much of the produce that we have in WCPS is like local food, like grown in the area?
I don't. I know, Reinhardt Orchards is a local orchard, and we get, I think, a majority of our apples.
I was
And
going to say, we might be able to get that answer during our food service presentation later on, so maybe Mike will save that unless it's...
even the two vendors that we buy.
We're going to have him up in a couple
that we
minutes.
we would buy produce from. A lot of them buy from local, and everybody's definition of local is a little different, but, I know they have farms in South, right over the border in PA. They buy from Maryland, all over the state of Maryland. Obviously, there are things like bananas and things like that we don't buy local, but, they even the distributors we buy from, a lot of what we get is local produce.
And then I just had one more question. It says in the processed commodities, what is, well, actually two questions. What is a processed commodity in terms of, like, if you're in a lunch line?
So processed commodities could be beef, chicken, cheese, all of those types of commodity products that we get credit from the USDA, and we're able to utilize dollars to get reduced cost in any of those commodities: chicken, beef, cheese.
Okay, and then another thing is, it says that they're chosen in an effective manner on overall value, and it cites student input. So how is student input gained on some of these foods?
When we originally did this bid 3 years ago, let me look here, 2019. So yeah, approximately 3 years ago, the food service staff had essentially a tasting with student government, and it was at Clear Spring, Williamsport, one of the schools. Set up the cafeteria. They brought in all different kinds of samples from vendors. When we did the bid, vendors had to send in some different samples. So they might have sent in a sample of, we asked them specifically for maybe their chicken patty and, a beef product, and maybe one of their pizzas and, all that. And food service kind of made them in individual bite-sized pieces, and students went around and taste tested and then gave feedback to food service on what they thought was the best, or tasted the best, and so when food service is creating the menu, they're taking that into account. Like, okay, this was this is the highest priced product, but it also scored the highest in student input. This was the next lowest price, and it was right below. So maybe they'll go with the less, or maybe this is the mid-range price product, but it scored the highest. So they take all that into account when picking the items for student lunches.
It's interesting to hear our kitchen staff talk about what the students like. I mean, they clearly know what's going to be a good seller and what's not going to be a good seller. And I think, and we'll hear from Mr. Emily and others here when we get to the food service budget presentation a little bit. But obviously, the students vote with what they pick up each day or what they purchase. And I think staff adjusts beyond the food tasting that we had several years ago. I think staff adjusts to, they're not eating this product, you
Correct.
shift to that product. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, voting
Yeah.
on what you select.
I mean, food is
It's
definitely
different.
something different. The lowest price, if it's got a terrible rating, you're going to serve it, and students aren't going to take it, or they're going to skip that. So they try and, maybe they're willing to spend $1 more a case if something rated much higher, had all the nutritional values that are required, and so it's worked out. We also award by category, so we're not awarding like Tyson Chicken. We're not awarding them the chicken patties. That's the only thing we buy. We're awarding them the chicken category, so it allows us to basically look at all of their chicken items and maybe try something different. Maybe it's a teriyaki chicken or something like that they can try and menu it once or twice and see if that's something that the student population likes, and then they could add it to the menu in the future. Sure.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the awards and renewals as presented this evening in the consent agenda. All those in favor? All right, thank you. We have 5 affirmative and the student member concurs. So we have an approved consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Our next item of new business, we have several memos of understanding, and we have Mrs. Terry Baker, Executive Director of Human Resources, with us. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Michael, members of the board. Tonight, we have 2 areas that we would like to review for your consideration. We ask for your consideration of memorandums of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education, the Washington County Educational Support Personnel, the Washington County Teachers Association, and the Washington County Association of Administrators and Supervisors regarding an additional one-time sick leave benefit effective June 30th, 2022.
Thank you. Mrs. Baker, is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between Washington County Board of Education and Washington County Educational Support Personnel regarding an additional one-time sick leave benefit effective June 30, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any discussion? Any questions? All right, we'll move to the vote. Voting to approve the memo of understanding is read. Okay, thank you. We have 5 affirmative and student member, oh, you don't vote on this, sorry. Sorry, my mistake. 5 affirmatives, so we have an approval of that memo of understanding. Is there a second motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between Washington County Board of Education and Washington County Teachers Association regarding an additional one-time sick leave benefit effective June 30, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions? Discussion? Second memo of understanding? All those in favor of approval? Okay, thank you. We have 5 affirmative. That memo of understanding is approved. Do we have a third motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between Washington County Board of Education and Washington County Association of Administrators and Supervisors regarding an additional one-time sick leave benefit effective June 30, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions or discussion about that motion, the memo of understanding? All those in favor of approval? Okay, thank you. We have 5 affirmative, so that memo of understanding has been approved.
Williams, if I might, I do want to thank our bargaining groups and staff for working this out. This benefit, these 3 MOUs will provide 3 additional sick days for all 3 bargaining groups. It'll be effective June 30th and available to staff to be used for next year. This is in light of COVID. Obviously, the first year of COVID, first 6 months of COVID, we were recovering through COVID leave from the federal government, required by law by the federal government. The next 6 months, we covered COVID leave and quarantining as a school system. We just weren't able to continue to do that. But we certainly recognize that COVID has been a challenge for families, for individuals, for staff members. And this is just the most equitable way we thought that we could come up with. And I appreciate the bargaining groups working with us on that and their patience till we got here to the end of the year. And, we help, replenish the balances for next year for staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael, and I believe we have some more memorandums.
So we also ask for your consideration of memorandums of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel, the Washington County Teachers Association, and the Washington County Association of Administrators and Supervisors regarding an additional one-time compensation benefit to employees during school year 2022-2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Educational Support Personnel Incorporated regarding an additional one-time compensation benefit to employees during the school year 2022-2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Are there any questions or any discussion about that memo of understanding? All those in favor? We have 5 affirmative. Is there a second motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Teachers Association Incorporated regarding an additional one-time compensation benefit to employees during the school year 2022-2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions or any discussion about that memo of understanding? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. We have 5 affirmative votes. Is there another motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Washington County Board of Education and the Washington County Association of Administrators and Supervisors regarding an additional one-time compensation benefit to employees during the school year 2022-2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions or discussion of that memo of understanding? All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative, so that memo of understanding has been approved, so.
Mrs. Williams, if I might, again, want to thank our bargaining groups, and this is money that is not going to be costing the general fund any cost to the general fund. We applied for a Maryland Leads grant, and one of the eligible items in the Maryland Leads grant was compensation or retention to help staff, stay on board for another year. So this will amount to a 2% salary benefit. It'll be paid out in January and June to employees who continue to be with us for next year. As mentioned in the FY22 budget adjustments, a lot of that adjustment came out as a result of staff openings. These are very critical openings to our system. It's necessary that we get these filled. We're running somewhere between, I don't want to overestimate, but I would say 75 is a safe number that we've had this entire year. I think we're up to 19 custodian openings. That historically has never been the case. We've generally been running 40, 45 IA openings to work with our most, students with their greatest needs. And we have to find ways to retain staff. Obviously, teachers are in shortage, administrators as well. So we're pleased we're able to work with the Leads grant and not have any cost to the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you, Mrs. Baker. Okay, we'll move to our next item under new business, and that is the 2022 Educational Facilities Master Plan. We have back with us Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Rob Rollins, Director of Facilities Planning and Development, and Mr. Chad Criswell, Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams. Again, board members, Dr. Michael, Mr. Rollins, Mr. Criswell are with me for the Educational Facilities Master Plan. When we last met 3 weeks ago, the Board of Education had a work session to review the contents of the Educational Facilities Master Plan. As a reminder, that is then the precursor document to our capital improvement plan, which we'll present to you in the fall. At this time, staff is asking for your consideration and approval of that document so it may be forwarded on to the state by the end of the month.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the 2022 Educational Facilities Master Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions or any discussion? No? Okay, then the motion is to approve the 2022 Educational Facilities Master Plan. All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative votes and a student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Could have gone home early. Pie and everything.
Big sigh of relief. Okay, our next item is Food and Nutrition Services Fiscal Year 2023 Operating Budget. And Mr. Michael Embley, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services, will be joining Mr. Brew. Good evening, Mr. Embley.
Good evening again. So with me again is Mr. Mike Embley, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services. As we sat here a year ago, there's a lot of up in the air in terms of what things were going to look like within the food and nutrition world, what meals were going to look like, were students going to be back in person, at what percentage would they be back. We presented to you at that time what we felt was a very conservative budget, but I believe what Mr. Embley shared with you was this thing could go either way. It could go good or bad from a business perspective. If students were not back and we were continuing to pay staff at the level that we had the prior year, the department could have taken on significant losses. It also was such a conservative budget that if meals were right, participation was right, students were in school, and we received the highest level of federal reimbursement that we were eligible to receive, it could be a very good year. I'm happy to report it was a very good year. The willingness on the part of the federal government to maintain the universal free meal program over the last year, which utilizes the summer meal service program, which is the highest level of reimbursement, was significant to the food service operations, as well as a couple of diffusions of cash from the state, from the Maryland Meals for Achievement funds, and also funds that I believe came out of the governor's share of ESSER funds. So with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Embley. He'll share with you the budget presentation, and we'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Crew. So, as I shared with the Finance Committee a few weeks ago, the first half of our year was most challenging, and the most challenging I've ever faced in the 22 years in child nutrition. From staffing shortages to are we going to get our food service truck deliveries? Those things had never come into question in my 22 years, and we knew we were in for a challenging year. As Mr. Prue stated, we knew about this time last year that all meals would be free, that we would be receiving a higher reimbursement amount that actually went up January 1st because it's based on the summer meal service program, which is typically higher. What we faced in the beginning of the year was, a really slow start. We had lower participation due to we didn't have all the children in school. We had product availability that cut into a la carte sales. We can only serve products that are approved for the Smart Snack program. Again, staffing challenges might have been reduced service lines. But we battled through all of that, and we really finished strong with higher participation, especially in our paid category, because those meals were free for those students. Let me walk you through a little bit of participation. And what we found was, again, the first part of the year was slow. The second part of the year, we really, really did well. So when you average everything out, we were slightly 33% was our breakfast participation. We're budgeting for 35%, which is closer to where we were in the full year before we shut down. Breakfast participation is going to still be slightly down because we went to modified programs where we used to do in-classroom breakfast for all in some of the secondary schools. And now it is a model of we're able to serve hot products where students can come and grab and go to their homeroom classes. But it reduced costs, and it does reduce a little bit of the participation because some of those students might not have wanted that breakfast that was available for them in the classroom. Lunch participation is about the same. We're at 54% this year. When we left off in 2019, we were at 60%, and that's what I'm budgeting for next year. We think with kids being in school all year long, that we will return to more of a normal lunch participation. This is one of the areas that I started to see an improvement at the end of the year, as products became available. One of the challenges that we face is manufacturers. We were shut down for a year. We didn't have kids in school, so there weren't a la carte sales. A lot of those manufacturers like Frito-Lay that were producing school-specific items shifted their business model into the retail because that's where the business was, in the retail markets. So they have slowly started to come back. However, some of those companies have been really slow to come back. And I'm going to be going to a convention here in a few weeks, talking to some of the bigger manufacturers to try to figure out exactly what next year lies for the manufacturers of some of our smart snack items.
Mr. Emily, you mentioned smart snacks. I know we get criticized for serving Pop-Tarts and things like that. You just mentioned Fritos. Can you share with the viewing audience, how some of those products are different than what you're buying off the grocery store shelf?
Absolutely. Whole grain rich. There's a correct me if I'm wrong, is a calorie cap. So they are very much different. We have a calculator that we put the nutritional information in that tells us if that particular product is smart snack compliant.
So, we do have to abide by certain laws and regulations, and it's not necessarily the product that people are buying off the grocery store shelves.
100%.
In most cases, it's not. So they're reformulated to be whole grain rich. They are reduced calorie, reduced fat, reduced sodium. So it may still carry a Frito-Lay label. It may still carry a Pop-Tart label, but it is not what's on the grocery shelf.
But the kids think
They do.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes. Depending on the product, some of them are very good. Some of them are a little more challenging. So total revenue comparisons, as you can see, we were at over $15 million projected this year, which is significant. Again, we had some money come in from the state and federal government. The additional higher reimbursement rate, the reimbursement rates went up in January. We are projecting to go back down to about $12 million. However, as we sit here right now, I do not know what the reimbursement rates are for next year. The federal government still has not released that information, which is very late in the game. There's still a lot happening. There's still attempts to get the waivers to extend. I'm not holding out that hope. What we've presented is a budget that I believe will be very close. But I've seen crazier things. We've talked many times of the potential and what could happen. It's something that we're going to be monitoring closely. Just like food costs. Food, as you see in the grocery stores, continues to go up. Where's that stop? I will say that my team is extremely, extremely dedicated and works extremely hard with our vendors and our procurement office to ensure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. You just approved a contract with our local storage, and there's times where the state will call and say, hey, we have X number of free trucks of peach cups or vegetables or whatever it may be, and we're able to say yes now. And we have been this year as well. And so when you're maximizing, when other folks aren't using those dollars, we're more than happy to help them out and use those dollars.
The procurement presentation, I cut Mr. Gupta off on his question about the local produce. I'm pleased to see our local produce vendors show up at our docks, and when we had the cafeteria here, they frequently would come here. So, Mr. Gupta, you might want to ask your question again, or Mr. Emily, if you remember the question. I don't know if you have specific information on the percentage of those products we get locally.
I wouldn't have a percentage for you, but I will say one of the things that we're diversifying again this year and adding Greensburg Farms back to the mix. And a lot of times what happens is local farmers, if they have a surplus of, let's say, watermelons this time of year, they send those to Greensburg Farms typically. They will go to him and say, hey, I have this, will you buy? And they have those local relationships. A lot of times when things are in season, we're not in school. So what we're able to do is they can contact us with what they call a specials local sheet. Here's what we have, here's the price, are you interested? It not only helps support the local farmer, but oftentimes comes at a lower cost than what I could buy from an outside source bringing that in. I don't have an actual percentage, but it's something that's extremely important to us to continue to support the local farms.
Like Reinhardt Orchards, I see them deliver frequently. Aren't they apples from their storage, or not necessarily?
That's correct. We've been using Reinhardt Orchards
Probably 10 years now. We've been in a partnership with Reinhardt Orchards, so that in August, early September, peaches, nectarines come from them, and then apples year-round. He used to, when I first met with JD, he would tell me how you'd run his trucks down to the Port of Baltimore and ship out. And he was ecstatic to work with Washington County and just run a pickup truck to various schools and drop off his apples and have them consumed here in Washington County. And when we talk local, the big one that we often forget about is milk. You know, milk, we use Potomac Farms Dairy out of Cumberland, Allegheny County. They're a partner with a company out of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, so again, not far away. But when you're talking milk, it's all local. That's coming from your local farms that are going to dairies and being processed. So we definitely should not forget about our dairy farmers.
Thank you.
You know, the last comparison slide I have is labor. Labor will continue to be a big challenge, you know, and as you can see, the price tag, and that's something that, you know, again, we're going to continue to work hard for efficiencies, but also to provide the excellent service for the students. It's not something that we're going to cut labor to take away services from our students. So, as I shared with the Finance Committee, you know, we have a significant surplus, and this typically never happens in food nutrition, and we are over the 3-month operating expense limit and need a spend down plan. So we have a spend down plan. As you can see, we gave you a 10-year chart of what we've invested over the past 10 years. So, you know, almost $2 million in 10 years. We have budgeted to spend $1 million next year, $1 million in '24, potentially $1 million in '25. And the question marks really are, we really need a little bit of time, you know, because as I said, I don't know what the reimbursement rates are black and white today. I don't know where food prices will be in 6 months. We need a little bit of time to monitor what happens to participation now that we're going to go back to a paid program again. There's a lot of unknowns. I was hoping to be here in the middle of June with a lot more definitive, but we're still waiting, as every school system in this country is sitting and waiting. We will be able to adjust. My hope is that this plan stays and we can invest $3 million in 3 years what we would normally invest, you know, and that's 15 years worth of investments in equipment. More efficient dishwashers. What we learned this year, there's many school systems that have abandoned dishwashers. There was times this year where you could not buy the 5-section disposable compostable trays. They're not really a great product. I believe in continuing to utilize our dish machines. So we're replacing 30-year-old dish machines, not energy efficient. You can't get parts for them anymore. The same with cooking equipment. Yes, we buy a lot of our food from manufacturers that you know, macaroni and cheese. They're the experts in making the macaroni and cheese, so it's the same macaroni and cheese all over the county. But we need a way to heat that, and we've got technology, in particular ovens that we're purchasing, that we have a whole crew right now that's working on time and temperature and presentation of the product. So having uniform, you know, having 20 different ovens that are a wide variety of ages. Dr. Michael's been experienced in working with some of those out in the kitchens over his tenure, and can explain that to you too. That becomes a challenge when you have school over here that's, you know, you got to turn it here, kick it there, and hope for the best. And this school over here, it's cooking half the time. So it's really time to invest, and we're blessed to have that opportunity to invest. We're also looking at front of the house equipment, you know, better display of the food. There's studies that have proven, and I've experienced it in a previous district that I ran, that our sales doubled when we displayed the food, the same food, differently. And we've done that in a few of our schools with great success. So again, next year we're planning, it's a return to normal, free, reduced, and paid. We're going to continue to process meal applications, but now for the first time this year, we've been carrying folks over for 2 years based on the USDA rules. So we will be communicating with the public, making sure everyone understands the value of filling out that free and reduced form. One of the bonuses is we will still calculate free, reduced, and paid. However, the free meals obviously will be free. The reduced meals will be free. The state of Maryland is picking that tab up. We will continue. We have 13 community eligibility schools where every child that goes to that school, regardless of status, receives free meals. You know, again, as I've shared, federal reimbursement rates are not yet determined. Are we anticipating supply chain challenges? I do believe they're going to continue. Manufacturers, I don't know, will they get caught up this summer with, participation levels maybe backing down? That's the hope, and that's what we want to see. Again, cost increases, where do they end? And we're going to be as diligent as we ever have been and continue to monitor that and pivot. I think the one thing that we've learned over the past 2 years is we'll take the challenges as they come, we'll face them, and we'll figure it out and be successful on the other end. This one is not going to be fun, but we've been, those of you that have been on the board for a while realize that meal charges for those that are paid, that they don't pay, and some of the, we have a charge policy, and we will have to go back to monitoring that. Meal prices, we have discussed throughout the state, throughout the country. We talked about meal prices. Now's not a time to consider a price increase. It doesn't net us that much. We're the $900,000 that I'm projecting as a loss is because of the equipment purchases. It's coming out of the fund balance. So we're proposing that we return to 2019 for the fiscal year 2020 pricing, which was $1.55 for breakfast, $2.35, and $2.60 for lunch. And with that, I'll open it up for your questions and then ask for your approval of the budget.
So you just, on the last slide, you said cost increases, where does it end? So you really think that the food cost increase that you projected will cover us for the year?
I think so. And one of the reasons, Mr. Prue and I talked about it for a while, and for me, it's nice to have a former expert in food services, and we talked about that one of the contracts, that our food contract continues to grow nationwide. And I shared with Mr. Prue, there's other large systems that they seem to be growing this, which a large bid, large procurement is going to help keep those prices down. And my hope is that, again, we're looking at bulk purchasing, looking at bringing truckloads in locally, diversifying, and continuing to something that we monitor every day. It was very clear, Mr. Prue reminded me that, the $4 million surplus can disappear in a hurry, and that's not something that we're sitting back. We're going to continue to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you.
Does every school heat its own food, or do you still have satellite schools?
We still have satellite schools. We have converted, and as we build new schools, they have cooking facilities, and we've also done some modifications where a lot of things come from the base kitchen, but things like pizza, chicken patties can be heated right at the school, because it is challenging. There are challenges that come with transporting food. Matter of fact, we have a whole group over working at South High I was watching them take a pizza, and Dr. Michael will also share this with you. Some of the consistency challenges, they might do it over here and put parchment paper down, and over here, no, you don't put parchment paper. So he experienced that as someone who goes around and works in the different kitchens, and it was interesting because it's something we had been working on. But looking at how we transport that product and how can we purchase equipment in some of the schools to convert.
Thank you.
Mr. Gupta?
Yeah, so I just had kind of a general question. What is the point of the a la carte options? I mean, I see that they're making revenue like $4,000, but I mean, in comparison to everything, that kind of fails.
It's giving students a chance to purchase additional items. I'll use finally, after 22 years in the business, I have a second grader. He'll be going into the third grade in Chambersburg. And learning a lot of, hey, I tried to encourage him to get the meals this year because they are free. But he's like, sometimes that's not completely enough, and I'd like some more. So we would send some extra things because they didn't sell a la carte at the elementary level. So it's giving students that have the funds to buy a variety of products and supplement their meal.
Can they? Because I've seen some of my friends do this, but they'll buy like 3 cookies. Like, is that allowed, or is that just
if their parent or guardian allows that? Yes, there is matrix that parents can limit how much gets spent each day with a la carte purchases. So yeah, if your parent, I mean, I see some accounts that here's $1,000 and have at it.
So there are global a la carte limits set within the cash register system that are set by building level. So high schools have a level, middle schools have a level, elementaries have a level. Parents have the ability to raise and lower that level on request to the food service department. They can call into the main number to the food service department or send an email and the staff will happily adjust their child's account.
So I actually had the similar question. So out of a county of 22 or 23,000 students, we only sold $4,000 worth of a la carte items. Did I read that right? Or
Per day.
am I missing a couple zeros?
Per day.
Per day.
Oh, per day.
Per day.
Okay.
Right.
Per day.
That makes okay.
The total, you have a 2-page budget summary in your book of
Yeah.
revenues expenses. That total projected for the next school year is $710,000
Okay.
school year wide.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion then for approval of the budget?
President Williams, I move to approve the proposed FY 2023 Food Nutrition Services operating budget.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any other questions or discussion before we move to the vote? Okay, we're voting to approve the proposed fiscal year 2023 Food Nutrition Services operating budget. All those in favor? Okay, so we have 5 affirmative, student member concurs.
Thank you.
You have an approved budget.
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Michael, for your support of the Food Nutrition Service Department over the years. I know being out in the schools working and the staff love having you, and we just are very appreciative of your support.
One of the highlights of the year is an opportunity to work in our base kitchens. I don't get to work in every kitchen, but I work in 9 of our base kitchens every year. Probably been doing that 15, 16, 17 years in a row. And, I can only tell you, these people work extremely hard, men and women. We're starting to gain more men in that workforce. Traditionally, it was always women, but they are physically some of the hardest working people. Obviously, very smart with what they're doing and trying to prepare safe meals for our students. And unfortunately, many of them are our lowest paid employees as well. So my hat's off to them. A different experience for this year was how often I was there, and suddenly they had to redeploy staff to another kitchen because of staffing shortages. So that was different for them. I know when I was in your office, every week I try to go around, say, have a good weekend to staff. I'd frequently see Shannon. I'd say, how are we doing for food this week? And she'd say, oh, no, we're going to make it another week. We're going to make another week. But Mike's team has had to work hard to find food for every week. It's not been our normal order and orders show up and it's automatically there. Your team has had to do a lot of substituting and shifting and changing menu and whatever it takes, changing product to make this year work. So I think that was a reflection. You said it was a difficult year. So my hat's off to your entire team, especially your people out in the field, and I greatly appreciate them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the running joke was always that to
Mashed
make
potato.
Dr. Michael make the mashed potatoes because nobody else wanted to make them.
Is
So
that right?
he was there, so make him make the mashed potatoes.
Mr.
I think it made
Emily,
them
I wish you happy shopping with your equipment, and I know you're going to make lots of people out there in those kitchens happy with those new dishwashers and ovens, so I hope you get some real good deals.
Thanks for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have Dr. Peggy Pugh, Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership, coming forward with an action item regarding calendar modification for the upcoming school year. Dr. Pugh.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Michael, members of the board. I'm here to request your approval for changes to the 22-23 school calendar to include the following 5 2-hour early dismissals. Those would occur on September 23rd, 2022, October 7th, 2022, February 10th, 2023, March 10th, 2023, and April 28th, 2023.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Is there a motion?
Madam President, move to approve the calendar modification for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Stauffer. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion or any questions for Dr. Pugh? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve calendar modification for the 2022-2023 school year as read by Dr. Pugh. All those in favor? Okay, we have 5 affirmative. Student member concurs. We have approval. Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Dr. Michael, it's now time for the superintendent's report.
Hey, thank you, Mrs. Williams. Coming up on my next to last report, I believe. I'm very excited tonight to invite Paula Moore to the table. She's going to share a little bit about one of our Spanish teachers and a recent success story we have. Ms. Moore?
Good evening. Aubrey Swisher, Boonesboro High School Spanish teacher, was recently named as the 2023 Maryland Foreign Language Association's Teacher of the Year. 5 WCPS teachers have achieved this recognition, making Washington County the most decorated in the state for this award. Senora Swisher has 13 years of experience as a WCPS teacher. She mentors new language teachers, writes curriculum, advises Spanish Honor Society, provides student outreach opportunities to local and international Hispanic charities, and facilitates professional development at the district, state, and national levels. Senora Swisher is an inspirational and skillful teacher who brings language and culture to life. One student said, during Dia de los Reyes, she filled our shoes with personal gifts following the Spanish tradition. And before our AP exam, she hand-delivered Guatemalan worry dolls to each student's home. Despite the challenges of teaching during the pandemic, our class had a 100% pass rate on the 2020 AP exam. Another former student said, Mrs. Swisher made me feel welcome with her undeniable, contagious smile and energizing personality. She has inspired me to become a Spanish teacher one day, as I am currently majoring in education. She has thoroughly prepared me for collegiate level Spanish. Senora Swisher will be honored at the Fall Maryland Foreign Language Association's conference as the Maryland Language Teacher of the Year. And then in February, she will compete against language teachers from Maine to Maryland in New York City for the Northeast Conference Teachers of Foreign Languages Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to Aubrey Swisher on her well-deserved accomplishments in teaching and learning languages. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Paula, for that presentation. Ms. Swisher, congratulations to you. I also want to note that we are very fortunate to have Ms. Moore as our supervisor. She does an outstanding job not only with our world language programs that continues to improve. I remember her as an excellent teacher, as I recall, I believe Williamsport in French, and just an outstanding not only teacher but now an outstanding supervisor. And I think the success of our 5 state winners is a direct reflection upon you, Ms. Moore, as well as their success with our EL program. So thank you for your work. This time I'd like to ask Eric Michael, Supervisor of Athletics, Health, and Physical Education, to come forward. Once again, Washington County's had some success here at the state level for spring sports. So, Mr. Michael?
Good evening. Yes, we've had a very successful spring season. Before we get into our state champions, I'd just like to recognize we did have 5 teams win region championships this spring, as well as a number of individuals that also won region championships. And one of the things Maryland Public Secondary School Athletic Association does is give a sportsmanship award for the Final Four. When they go to semifinals and finals, they take all those teams into account, and then there's a sportsmanship award for each sport awarded. And I'm proud to say that Smithsburg High School boys lacrosse team won that this year for boys lacrosse. So congratulations to them. So on to our state champions. We had a very successful spring. First up is tennis. This year we had a boys 1A singles champion, Hunter Lau from Boonesboro High School. Hunter was quite impressive. If you follow tennis, number one, he was undefeated, 23-0, which is really a feat. He's a freshman as well, so that's quite a feat. And then when you look at Washington County history, it's been 37 years since we've had a boys singles champion in Washington County. So he's set a high mark this year. So we congratulate Hunter. Also in tennis this year, we had a mixed double champion from Clear Spring High School in 1A as well. Andrew Keller and Kata Shives. They played singles all year, and when they went to the region, they paired up and played mixed doubles, went straight through the region, got to the state championship, and were successful in bringing home that mixed doubles champion, so we congratulate them. And then we were very lucky, very fortunate. We had a team championship baseball this year, again, 1A championship. Clear Spring got very hot on their way to the championship. They defeated a very tough Allegheny High School team, and they also defeated the defending state champions in Catoctin High School. I'm going to read the names across. The names are in numerical order according to the roster. So members of the team are Braden Wade, Christopher Hose, Tyler Josenhans, Malachi Cunningham, Jacob Hall, Damian Pittsnoggle, Dawson Kerr, Austin Doppel, Lane Poffenberger, Brady Wallace, Cannon Shives, Logan Helsler, Bennett Decker, Aiden Swartz, Hudson Troball, Coleman Jr., Clayton Boyer, Hayden Muir, and assistant coaches are Eric Bender, Brandon Glazier, Brad Poffenberger, and head coach Mark Shives. And just a little side note, it was a very successful Saturday for the Shives family. Kata was the tennis champion, as you saw on the previous slide. Cannon Shives is the sister, and Mark Shives is the father. So it was a unique experience.
So in the middle of the state championship game, way down the road, I forgot the name of the stadium, we were at Regency Furniture
Regency Furniture Stadium in Southern Maryland.
In the middle of the game, between innings, they did announce that Ms. Shives had won the mixed doubles, which was kind of neat for Mark to be able to hear that. Also with Mr. Keller and Ms. Shives, that both their parents worked for WCPS.
Was that an open playoff this year? Everybody got in, or
Yes.
baseball?
Yes.
Sometimes when that happens, you get hot. First person who wins 4 games or whatever, you're the state champion. I mean,
Yep.
happens.
Clear Spring put up, it was kind of unique. They put up some big innings. Catoctin, defending state champion, they put it to 1 inning, they put up 8 runs on them, and that virtually ended the game at that point. I mean,
You don't do that too often
Yes,
on the top
no.
teams.
We have more good news, I believe. Track.
Track, yep. So on to the track this year, again, successful track season. Smithsburg High School girls relay team 4x800 meter were the state championship. They were members of that team are Kayla Hallbecker, Ella Fisher, Coral Gensel, and Grace Ellis. They were the first event on the track and right away won the state championship. We're pretty excited about that. So congratulations to those girls. And then also in girls 1A, we had Caroline Matthews, 3,200 meter run champion. You might recognize her face. She's been a very successful runner this year. She's successful cross country. She was also a state champion indoor track. So she's only a sophomore, I believe. So looking for big things for her to come. And then lastly, we have Cameron Rajones. He was the boys 1A 400 meter track champion for Smithsburg High School. Again, he's a multi-sport athlete. I think he was a kicker on a football team, ran cross country, and he was also an indoor track champion. So we've seen him a few times here before, and again, he is a junior, so he'll be back again next year. So a very successful spring season for us. Just like to say, on behalf of all of our student athletes, our athletic directors, our coaches, appreciate Dr. Michael's support through the years. He's been very supportive of our athletic programs, and he was at the baseball game. He's been to a couple state championships. Very rarely do you see a superintendent on the field awarding the awards, and he's been there the last couple of years, so we very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Michael, if I remember correctly, I think I saw Clay Boyer won Player of the Year as well. With all these other successes here, do we have any other Players of the Year?
Clayton Boyer was Pitcher of the Year with Hudson Troball as well for Clear Spring. The tennis, obviously the tennis, they were a player. I think Kata was the female Player of the Year, and Hunter was the male Player of the Year for that. There's several different award categories. I think there's a Washington County Athletic Association. It's on Twitter. I think several, honestly, all of the Clear Spring, I think they pretty much swept the public school categories with that. Coach Shives was the Coach of the Year. So
very cool.
Made a lot. Yep.
I also want to say we criticize the local newspaper a lot for various coverage, but I do want to compliment them. They do a fantastic job of covering our local sports. Part of the reason I'm even aware of some of these is because I see it in the paper. And I did see that Bob Parcelletti, I think, just celebrated 35 years or
Yes.
something with the Herald Mail. So
Bob has been very good, very good and very.
Yes, Bob's been very good, and Bob actually is, I think, being elected into the Washington County Hall of Fame this year.
fantastic.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Mr. Michael. And congratulations to all our students. I also want to continue our congratulations in recognition of one of our Tech High students. They were responsible for, actually won a contest for designing Maryland CTE logo. So Taya Poole, class of 22 at Technical High School, won the logo contest. I think there were 66 entries. It was narrowed down to 3 finalists. They worked with a branding marketing agency, and her entry was selected to be the Maryland State CTE logo.
Fantastic.
So congratulations to her. She participated or graduated from our Cisco Academy at Tech High. So not only does she have that technical knowledge, but also that artistic talent as well. I want to make a couple of advertisements. Our blueprint committees are starting up. Thank you to Dr. Willow and Dr. Kara Burhams. We have 2 committees that we're seeking membership on at this point. So our Early Childhood Committee and our College Readiness Committee. We're looking for people that might be interested, parents, students, teachers, others that have interest in those 2 areas of the blueprint as that starts to roll out. The information will be available on our website, also on social media, how you can apply to be a committee member. We anticipate those committees will get kicked off in July. If you're selected, more information will come out from our blueprint team. Parents, by now, if you have Student View and Parent View, you should have seen your child's grades. We also always print a hard copy at the end of the year and mail home. I cannot predict when the U.S. Mail will deliver report cards to your house, but they are in the mail. But I really encourage parents and students as well. So if you don't have a Student View account, students or parents, if you don't have a Parent View account, that is really a handy way to keep up with your child's grades throughout the marking period. If you contact your home school, they'll make efforts there to help you get set up for next year. Next year, we have some school adjustments to times, not significant adjustments. I don't think any of the adjustments to school times are more than 10 minutes, and many schools didn't change times at all. But we're trying to set up all of our comprehensive high schools to start at 8:35, the student day to start at 8:35 and run till 3:30. And to do that, we've had to make some adjustments in other elementary and middle school times slightly, so you want to check that information out. We do have a newsletter, SMORE, coming out tomorrow that'll list every single school in the system, what time the student day starts and ends, so parents can prepare for that. Again, if there's any adjustments, most of them are 3, 4, 5 minutes. There's a couple schools that need to be adjusted by as much as 10 minutes. Please, parents and children, mark your calendars for next year. August 29th, Monday, August 29th is our first day of school next year. So you want to mark your calendars for that. Another announcement, student immunizations are changing for next year, not what immunizations children need at the various grade levels, but the fact that you have to have your immunizations, you have to have your shots before the first day of school. Traditionally, they've allowed some leeway in that, and we find out who needs to be immunized and help parents get those things accomplished. But the law now is you must have your immunizations prior to the first day of school. I know the health department is hosting clinics throughout the summer, and certainly want to pursue making sure your child is up to date on all their shots. We just finished with spring sports, but August 10th is coming up, and that would be the approximate time period that we'd expect fall sports to begin. Students will need to have your physicals in place. I know a lot of conditioning is already happening for the fall, and we anticipate our first competition date to be September 2nd. Usually that kicks off with football. I think the 2nd is a Friday night. Again, athletes, you want to make sure that you have your physicals in place. Please contact your local athletic director for additional information. 2 other items. Tomorrow night is kind of our celebrations of celebrations. We just went through all the graduations. Appreciate the board members' participation in those. I think after several days of that, my face hurts from smiling. You can't help but feel good at those types of ceremonies. Tomorrow night, we have our final graduation ceremony for those staff members that are graduating and moving on to the next phase of their life. I know a number of board members are attending that event tomorrow night. We have 95 retirees. They average approximately 25 years of service to our students from ESP teachers and A&S. And I want to certainly thank all of them for their years of service. And wish them the very best and hope to do that again tomorrow night for those that are attending. And I want to end tonight with a video. You may have seen it on our Facebook channel, but just a congratulations to all of our seniors for the class of 22. Wish them well for their future. And just a little highlight reel. Thank Joe and the Public Relations, Public Information Department for pulling together information like this, as well as all our photographers across the county. Historically, we've been able to rely on the Herald Mail and others to have photographers. That wasn't possible, and our team jumped in. And thanks again for producing this video. And after the video, that'll conclude my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael.
Bailey, if you'll roll the video.
On behalf of the class of 2022, I would like to thank all the families and friends attending tonight's celebration for all the love and support you have demonstrated to guide us through these past 4 years of high school.
As I look around tonight, I see future doctors, entrepreneurs, electricians, teachers, athletes, and many others destined for success. I see movers and shakers, I see problem solvers, I see healers, I see thinkers, and I see doers.
On behalf of the Washington County Board of Education, I recognize that these students have earned all the rights, privileges, and honors associated with a Maryland high school diploma. Therefore, I declare these students are eligible to receive their diplomas. Congratulations.
Thank you again, Dr. Michael. At this time, we'll have personnel action. We have Dr. Pugh with us for that.
Good evening. As discussed earlier today in closed session, there are a number of staff changes for your consideration, and at this time, I ask for your approval of personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Is there a motion?
President Williams.
I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, as presented in the closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Mosey. Second. Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any questions before we move to the vote? Okay, we're voting to approve the personnel actions dated today, June 14th, as presented in closed session. All those in favor? All right, we have 5 affirmative. Those actions have been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll have reports to the board. We'll have board member committee reports. Mr. Gupta, would you like to begin down there? Do you have anything for student government kind of wrap up?
We had our end of the year picnic. I don't remember the exact date. I think 2 weeks ago now. And yeah, we give a celebration to all our seniors.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Sedmeyer isn't here to give the Curriculum and Instruction Committee report. Mr. Gessler's not here for facilities, so we'll just go to finance. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, I don't remember the date we met off the top of my head, but you saw a lot of what we discussed today, or in our spending today, so that a lot of that was presented to us, and then I know we did set another meeting, but I also don't remember that off the top of my head either, so I'll give that date next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mrs. Murray, Human Resources.
Yes, the Human Resources Committee is going to meet in July on the 26th at 10 a.m. here at the CES.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford, Policy Review and Development.
Policy Review and Development meets tomorrow here at 2 p.m. We're discussing policies regarding the establishment of school attendance areas, also reviewing the cell phone policy, administering medications to students, as well as changes to the policy recommended for student member of the Board of Education.
All righty, thank you. That concludes our committee reports. We'll move to miscellaneous business. Under future agenda items, you should have a list of 7 future agenda items. I'd like to highlight 2. The first one being the second reading of proposed changes to policy BBFE, which is the ethics policy, along with the administrative regulation and all the exhibits that go along with that, as well as the financial disclosure forms. That's coming up on June 21st. And then also on June 21st, we will have an update on the blueprint for Maryland's future. So looking forward to that. So that takes care of future agenda items. And I have another miscellaneous business item, and that is a special recognition. This evening we have an award to present to our student board member, Tanish Gupta. Tanish, Mr. Stalker's going to come down there with a plaque for you. We want to recognize you this evening and thank you this evening for your dedicated service to the board. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. I've appreciated seeing you in numerous committee meetings, and I have been in awe of your insightful questions and comments, both in committee meetings and here in our board meetings. So we thank you for your service. And Mr. Stauffer, you're going to go down there and present him with that beautiful plaque.
Good picture.
A handsome gentleman there.
You got a haircut.
I don't. Linda has that, I think. Did you? Oh, it's in the other
card
room.
for you, too,
Oh,
so
we
don't
have a
leave
card
without it.
for you as well, and we'll get that out to you. And the colleagues, did any of you have anything that you wanted to say to Tanish before I move ahead, or we?
I'll just say, you go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say good luck. We were really going to miss you. You did such a great job. It was just such a pleasure being on the board with you this year.
And congratulations on getting accepted to the University of Virginia. Not an easy school to get accepted into. As I said, Thomas Jefferson founded it, right? So represent us well. I know you will. And I'm just always amazed at the student members. I think it's really shown the quality of education you get in Washington County, considering we've had, since I've been on the board, just fantastic student members, and you've certainly lived up to that. I know you had big shoes to fill, and I think you filled them very well. So congratulations.
I too want to offer my congratulations and best wishes, and look forward to where life's going to take you. It's going to be exciting. Congratulations.
Congratulations. You've been a fine board member. We are blessed to have such excellent student board members and so forth. And Tanish just told me that he also is going to be governor of Maryland down the road, too.
Oh, really?
Right.
Very good.
State funding.
Yeah, remember it.
And obviously, congratulations, you made a fine choice out there in UVA. It's a great school, beautiful area, so I know you'll have a lot of fun, but keep up the hard work that you put in so far. Don't let it go to waste, so.
And what are you studying? I didn't hear.
I'm studying economics.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated that class.
Well,
Well,
all
you
the
can go back
best
and
to
teach
you and your
Mr.
studies,
Stauffer.
Tanish, and I look forward to seeing you on the ballot in, what year would that be?
No idea.
No idea. All right. Okay, so that takes care of miscellaneous business this evening, and we will move to board member comments. Mr. Evans, would you like to start?
Yeah, obviously, congratulations to all the seniors that just graduated, and congratulations to everyone in the school system on a challenging year. I guess that's the best way to put it. I know it wasn't easy, but you guys certainly, everyone involved certainly put in a lot of hard work to make it a success. Congratulations to all the athletes on successful seasons as well. And I would also like to take the time, obviously, everyone always wants and needs more money. And while we didn't necessarily get the budget funded the way that we expected it to or wanted it to, it is still worth noting that, and I don't remember a number off the top of my head, I think we threw around 3 or 4 different numbers there, but I think it was roughly $109 million that the local taxpayer is putting into our budget. So while we may want more, it is still worth noting and thanking them for their contribution to the public school system as well.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Stauffer?
I'll ditto a lot of the things he said. Congratulations to all the graduates. And tomorrow night, we meet the retirees who are leaving our system. And it was somewhat of a stressful year, but under the circumstances, it was as normal a school year as we could have, and so forth. And I just got one thing for you, Dr. Michael. I heard a rumor, unsubstantiated,
This would be
that
dangerous.
since you have a CDL license, you're going to be an activity bus driver. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's possible. I think it's possible.
Mr. Bigford?
I thought he was going to be I thought you were going to be a food service worker, because they said they were hiring.
I have
so-
been asked to come back and substitute, and I might do that. just
Okay,
for fun.
very good.
Well,
I
you can do
wonder.
that during the day, and then the activities in the evening.
And
Yeah.
he's also a farmer, so,
Yeah.
he can, we need some more vegetables,
Yeah.
right? Very well said, Darrell. I think we would be remiss if we don't thank the fact that we, for the first time ever while I've been serving on this board, we did receive more than maintenance of effort. And
About 2.2 million, I think, is roughly
Yeah.
the number. Jeff's nodding his head.
I agree. It's not, we always say we want fully funded, and we ask for a very conservative budget, but I do appreciate that we did receive more this year.
Mrs. Murray?
I echo your sentiments exactly. We thank you for the money that we got. Just want to thank all the speakers this evening. We appreciate your input. And that graduation video, oh my gosh. I think that is one of the best things. There are many good things about being a board member, but officiating a graduation is just the best thing in the world. To see those kids going out into the world, some of the kids that graduated this year, I have known since kindergarten. And to be there at their graduation was just such a blessing. So it was just wonderful. And the other thing I want to say is Happy Flag Day. I am proudly displaying my flag at my house, and I'm proud to do it. So that's all.
Mr. Gupta?
So, say with a lot of sadness that this is my last board meeting. It's gone by very, very fast. I didn't think it would go by this fast. I still remember my first board meeting. I sat right there and I gave public comment, and it was so memorable. And this time, I've had a wonderful time learning about local government, learning about the school system. and trying my hardest to make it better for the students, better for the teachers, better for everyone in the community. And I always look back at this time fondly as meeting with members of the community, with teachers, all the board members, all the staff, and all the students I've met through my position. They've all made it so worthwhile. And once again, I'd like to thank every single person who I've interacted with this entire time. It's just been so memorable, and I don't think I'll ever forget this experience. So, thank you.
Colleagues, I think you've all said it and said it very well. You've left nothing for me to say. I thank you for a day of good meetings, and we've accomplished a lot today. So I wish you a pleasant evening, and with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.